Alright, in this video I'm gonna show you how to rebuild your water pump. If you ever have a leak not coming from your drain but this tiny little weep hole underneath, that's the space in between your mechanical seal and your oil seal for your water pump. Whether you have oil or coolant, normally it would be coolant that's coming out of there, you'll need to rebuild your water pump. And there's two different styles. There's a mechanical seal that's going to be like this one. And then there's just the double seal style, which is much easier, but I feel like they fail more often than the mechanical seal. So, we're going to go over what you're going to do to replace your mechanical seal. So I've already drained the transmission oil on this one. You'll have to do that. And this is pretty universal across all bikes. So I had to drain the oil on this and drain the coolant. If you have newer coolant, just put it in a reusable container. I use a pitcher, a Kool-Aid pitcher, in case you have kids over. Always thin out the herd. So you'll have to have your kickstarter off, your brake lever out of the way, and of course the fluids drained. Now with this one, I'm just going to undo this hose and unbolt this one from the side of the cylinder and make it a little easier on me, installation and removal. So right now I'm just going to do that. And you don't have to take off your water pump cover, but I'm going to anyways, and take the impeller off ahead of time. You can wait until after, because you can always back it up from the back side with a crescent wrench, but I'm just going to use the engine and take it off now. Fewer steps. Stuck on the dowel pin. Just take that off and set him down out of the way for now. And then I'm going to need to grab a 10mm for this. I forgot about this. Alright, so now I'm going to take the impeller off. And he's got a little copper washer behind him. Make sure you don't lose that. Or maybe it'll be aluminum with your bike, I don't know. It all depends on the bike. And now, you don't have to take your outer clutch cover off. I mean, you're going to be able to see your clutch here in just a minute anyways. So, you got to undo all of the outer inner clutch cover bolts. Well, I'm going to take this guy off first. And now, get all the bolts out of the way. Looks like I'm going to have some drippage, some leftover oil, so I'm going to go get a rag, a couple of them. Alright, all the bolts are out. Double check. Oh, one more damn it bolt. There he goes. Now you'll be able to pull your clutch cover off. Or inner clutch cover. It's always a good idea to replace the seals too, like your kickstart shaft seal, like your gasket you'll most likely be replacing as well, unless it's fairly new. But this one was kind of leaking in this area, and that kick shaft seal is obviously leaking. Should have got a replacement one of those, but I can always replace it later on. And we'll have to be cleaning up the sealing surfaces for sure. And at this point too, you can inspect your clutch, your basket, your plates or friction plates and what have you. Make sure these guys are still tight. But yeah, there you go. Now we're gonna be over on the workbench, cleaning this up and getting ready to replace this impeller, or water pump, I'm sorry. Alright, right here at the workbench, we're ready to start getting our mechanical seal and our backing oil seal and a bearing. So I got the hot rods kit. I prefer hot rods. They make all sorts of bearing kits, seal kits for stuff like this. Maybe if I could get this open. There we go. Ta-da! Alright, you have your new mechanical seal. This is the top part for installation. This will help you push it down in there. Your backing seal. Your new water pump bearing. And they're even nice enough to throw in a new gasket for your impeller cover. No inner clutch cover gasket though, because, I mean, why would you replace that when you have to take this off anyways? Makes me wonder if Cometic makes one where it has everything. They're usually pretty good about that when you buy their kits. So now we got to get this impeller out, and you might need to use some persuasion. So you don't want to strike this with your hammer, because that will of course round and damage the thread. So you just use like an extension is what I'm using, or a punch. You can use the right tool for the job, or you can just be like me and get the job done. So a little persuasion, force them out. And he should come right out the backside, just like so. And then you're going to inspect him for any damage, wear, anything like that. You want a nice riding surface for your seals. If you don't have one, and see this one has like a divot groove there that sets inside the impeller, that's fine. Or inside the mechanical seal, not the impeller, oh my goodness. So, but just making sure this sealing edge is fine, so it'll seal the oil away from the water pump side. And now begins the fun part. So normally you can tear this guy out with like a chisel or screwdriver, whatever, but I prefer to go in from this side and just force them out that way. Less likely to damage your inner clutch cover. So I'm going to get a blind bearing puller to pull this guy out, and I will be right back. And ta-da! Bearing is out. Alright, now that we've gotten the old bearing out of there with our sweet tool, makes everything easier, makes everything much nicer. Just gonna pitch the old one. And now it's time to get this seal out. You can use seal pullers and stuff like that, which I believe I can use this one on, but that is quite a recess. So I'm gonna grab the seal puller real quick, and I'm gonna see if I can get it out with that. If not, I'm probably going to have to use some pliers and a screwdriver and assistance and walk it out. But as is it being failed, it'll most likely just come right out. Let me grab the seal puller real quick. Alright, we're gonna see if this one will reach in there and get it. Well, I pulled the spring off of it. No, we're not gonna be able to use that one. We're gonna have to use this one. You gotta be careful not to damage the sides. You don't want to score up the sides. Alright, so I got it pretty well cleaned up. And now it's time to drive out the mechanical seal. Now it's gonna be a tight fit, and you're gonna want to use like a socket or something, that exact bore. Wonder if this one will fit. Nope. Alright, so I think the 10mm was hitting the edges where this guy is going to ride on that little edge right there on the water pump shaft. But I'll be damned if I hadn't found a use for the 9mm socket. At least it's getting used, okay? And all I did was knock out the inner part. Damn it. This is going to be a pain. I might have to tear this out of there. It did not come out all as one unit, which sucks. So, I guess let's try a seal puller. Careful not to damage any sealing surfaces. Came right out. Sweet. Toss the old one away, the old seal. blah, blah. Goodbye. Now, I'm going to clean up these surfaces. Okay, so I've got it all cleaned up. I took some emery cloth and hopefully this will seal. If not, I'll have to get a new inner clutch cover. Or I guess you could do, well, it's too close to the weep hole to do that. So I'd have to replace the inner clutch cover. But for now, what we're going to do is install our new oil seal. I'm going to grab some oil to help with the assistance in pressing this in. Hang on. Alright, so we're going to put this guy in. Just need a little bit of oil to help. Not only am I going to do the outside, I'm also going to do the inside, so when I install the shaft, it makes everything easier. So, whoops. And you want the numbers and letters facing away from the oil side. So this will be like one of those rare circumstances where you install the seal backwards. Should be able to just put them in there with your fingers. Should be able to. Maybe, maybe not. Hang on. Alright, so he's not wanting to set in there. So I grabbed a socket and I'm just going to use it upside down so it's nice and flush. Just kind of lightly tap him into place. He's not wanting to go in even. There we go. Now, get these little rubber pieces out of there. There we go. And now we're going to put our bearing in. And he's just going to go all the way flush, so I'm going to do the same thing. He's got a special spot that he recedes into, so you can't go too far. Okay. And now that we got those guys in, we're ready to put in our mechanical seal. So, hang on one second, I gotta get a few tools together for this and go pick up some of the parts so I can actually install this correctly. I'll be right back. Alright, so we're gonna be putting the mechanical seal in now. I had to grab a 1 1/16 socket and it fits right down into the recess. Fits over this because you only want it pushing on the outer edge, not this guy. You have it pushing on any part of this guy, you're gonna ruin your mechanical seal. So, we're just going to set him down in there, and we're just going to lightly get him started. And he's not wanting to go. Almost. And seated. Okay, and now comes the tricky part. I'm going to have to go grab some of the old parts to be able to install this correctly. I'm going to use this guy with this guy and it's going to set everything in place. So I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. This one's going to be a little tricky because, I mean, can't really back it up with a socket or a wrench. So we're going to have to use a flathead screwdriver. And we're just going to set him in place and we're going to hold this outer edge. Okay, while we push him in, nice and light. We don't want to push him all the way in. See how he's kind of like still sticking out right here a little bit? Because we're going to use this to install it correctly. And just take your impeller, start threading him on, get him to where he touches, switch out your 8 for, oh, not the 9, the 10. Set to tightening, and that's why I said this is going to be the tricky part. I'm going to have to hold this with my chest, kind of, maybe. You know what, I'm going to get this guy ready. He'll stay. This guy won't. And we're just going to start tightening down. And this is going to pull the shaft all the way through and seat it against your seal. And I forgot to mention, don't use your copper washer. Or your aluminum one, whatever one you had. And you're just going until It is fully seated. And if you want to, you can torque this down. I believe it wants you to torque to like 41 foot-pounds or inch-pounds. Inch-pounds. But I'm just going snug and a little more. Alright, and now we have to take the impeller back off. And I think I can do that by hand now. Yep. There we go. I hope this is still in frame. I'm not even watching, focusing on what I'm doing. Come on, there we go. And now we're gonna get our fancy little tool out, maybe, if I can. There we go. And done with that guy. And I'm not even gonna bother putting the impeller on. I'm gonna wait till I have it on the machine. So as for this part, just throw away all your trash, clean up all your sealing surfaces, your water pump cover, sealing surface, your inner clutch cover sealing surface. I should have got a new O-ring for this one, but he protrudes all the way around, so he should still seal. And I should have gotten a kick shaft seal since this one was leaking already, but I didn't even pay attention to that. So anyways, just get them all cleaned up, get ready to go on, have your new inner clutch cover gasket ready, and I will meet you over at the bike. Alright, back at the bike. A few things you want to do first before you install your cover on is you want to make sure your sealing surface on your right side case cover is all cleaned up, no leftover gasket debris. Wipe down the lower edge, which I will do again before I put on the cover, because if you get oil in between, it could create a possible leak in the future. And another thing too is your kickstart shaft spring right here. You want to make sure he is set in place and not coiled over on the guide for the spring. If it is, then your cover is not going to sit all the way on. I like to make sure the dowel pins are in on the side that you're installing on. So we can take this repurposed sock, wipe down our lower edge again, make sure there's no oil on it, as little oil as possible. Then you're going to take your inner clutch cover gasket, set him in place, rest on the dowel pins, well, attempt to, I suppose. I'm a little shaky today. I need a beer, is what I need, is a beer. Okay, got him set in place. All your sealing surfaces are cleaned up on this guy too. So we're going to go ahead and install him. Just move this hose over to the side. Line up our kickstart shaft. Start going in place. Nice and easy. Now, if it doesn't sit all the way, you probably just need to turn this guy until he lines up with his little pin on his side. And just make sure it sits all the way flush all on its own. Check the bottom, check the top. Make sure it sits flush on its own. And now, we can go ahead and start putting all the bolts in. So here we go. Now, with installing the bolts, rule of thumb is they will all sit the same gap all the way around. If one goes down deeper than another by a lot and not a little bit, then you probably got one in the wrong spot. Okay, we've got all our bolts in. They're all sitting like a thread or two on, as much as I could where I could. So what you're going to want to do is start at the center and then crisscross your way out. This will help ensure a good seal. So Alright, all set in place, all mounted up nice and neat. There is one more bolt that holds the inner clutch cover on, but it's part of the water pump. So now we're going to install the water pump. All we're going to do is clean him up a little bit and replace this O-ring with the one that came in the kit. So give me just a second and I'll do that. Alright, got the impeller housing all cleaned up, new O-ring in place. But before we install him, of course, the impeller. So copper washer and then impeller. Get him started and nice and tight. Make sure the O-ring is still sitting in place. Mash him down if you have to. And I'm going to put him on. Oh, whoops. Better make sure we get this guy on first, which would be the best way that way. So, get him on. Put this guy back in this tight fit. Oh man, that's tighter than my wedding night. Alright, make sure the O-ring is still set in place. Put him on. Get our bolts. Run them through. And make sure your water pump drain bolt has this copper washer on. I like to get just a couple threads started, of course. And then start putting them together. There you go. And now we're going to tighten this hose clamp on. Turn him out just a little more. Toit like a toiga. And now we're going to put this guy together. Make sure his O-ring is still in place. Alright, his O-ring is still in place. Might need to use the socket since I can't reach in there very well. Oh, I'm going to need the extension too to get underneath that pipe. And just kind of hold him down in place where he's going to go. Can't really see what I'm doing. Just feeling for threads. That's all I'm feeling for. Can't feel any threads. There we go. I found threads. I'm going to put quite a few in on that one though, because this is kind of in a bind. Alright, and now just going to send them in with the old Ugga-Duggas. And there you go. Mechanical or water pump seal replaced. Go ahead and top off coolant, top off tranny oil, throw in your Kickstarter. Before you put your brake pedal on, make sure you lube your pin with new grease. And there you go, you should be ready to go. Good job, guys. Water pump seal replaced, not that bad, huh?